Welcome to another episode of Scale by Scale AI GTM. I'm excited to have an amazing guest that we're going to feature here today. Here at Scale, we talk with founders, co-founders, CEOs, CROs, heads of revenue that are impacting the go-to-market space, cyber, and of course, we all are at the intersection of our own various disciplines around AI. I'm your host, Mark Picaro. Today, we have an amazing guest. I'm excited to have him on. Lots of energy, lots of fun, and we're going to get rolling here. Todd Smith, the CEO and co-founder of TAHO. We're excited to have you on. Thanks for your time, and we're going to get right to it. Good with you, Todd.
Sounds good. I love how you bring the energy. This is fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Time is money. Let's go. Let's start real simple. I love the background, the pictures, the books. Maybe give me 20, 30 seconds. What am I looking at in the background, and what's notable that you can share with our listeners?
Yeah. So my grandfathers are over here. Those are some photos from them in World War II. I'm really proud of that. When it comes to the first Little League flag football team that I coached, that's there. My son is right over here. The books are mostly things that I have not yet read and that I hope to read someday. Once I read them, unless I really want to hang on to them, I'll get rid of them. Posters behind me, the one you can kind of see here. When I was living in LA, we went to the red carpet of Solo, and that was the poster we got from it. I'm a big Star Wars fan, so certainly like carrying that around with me and having that join me as well. Other ones you can't really see, but yeah, that's the background.
I love the inspiration and drive with the books, and certainly the family support that's there with you and your forefathers and grandfathers. Amazing. Hey, you mentioned LA. I'm sure you mean Los Angeles, but where did you grow up and what was that like?
I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware. It was interesting growing up there. You didn't really think that you were in a small state that not many people knew of because it was the whole world that you knew of at the time. I grew up near family in the suburbs around great friends, amazing people in that area. You get a range of weather all year round. There's actually a beach life there as well. That's alive and well. We had real boardwalks when I was on the West Coast. People would call the paved walkways, they were like big sidewalks, but they would call them boardwalks. But we actually had real boardwalks that were made of wood on the beach that you would walk up and down for recreation. That was always a lot of fun. And you had striking distance to mountains. I never really took advantage of it. Never skied before in my life, but they were there. It was also really interesting growing up there because later in life, I found out that it was a southern state. I didn't even know that while living there. We never really talked much about Civil War heritage. We always talked more about Revolutionary War heritage because it was the first state that signed the Declaration of Independence. So it was the first state to actually be a part of the United States. So we always used to brag about that. But it's a great place to be from. Great people. Growing up, the closest city was Philadelphia, and we would attach a lot to the Philadelphia sports. I had a great childhood, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I know the area. It's magical. I lived in DC, but I know the Delmarva and the great beaches in Delaware. It is a great place to grow up and certainly good people. And you do have real boardwalks with roller coasters and arcade games and all the what you envision.
Yeah, it was a fun time.
And so now you're all grown up. At what point did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
I think I'm not one of those people that was blessed figuring that out. I kind of meandered through life trying to find my path or what I was going to do. And I always had a leaning towards technical jobs. I've always had a bit of a technical aptitude. And I've also leaned into things in the service industry, customer service oriented, even in the hospitality industry. In all of those jobs, I would always find myself in leadership positions, always kind of had a knack for management, come from a long line of men that were leaders in their respective industries. I've always leaned into that as a leader. After working in Silicon Valley for a while, I started working in Silicon Valley back in 2008. And again, graduating to leadership positions within various brands. That's when I really learned that I love tech. I love working in the tech environment, working for some notable CEOs and seeing what they're doing. I've always had an entrepreneurial itch. Seeing them in action, seeing what they do for a living, seeing how hard it is, but also having this drive to occupy that position. I really felt as though I was destined to start something that had always been in the back of my mind. But then last year, when the opportunity came up, it just felt like, hey, I'm in my late 40s. It's kind of a now or never thing. Am I going to try this or am I not? And I just decided to lean into it. Really just decided to give it a shot with some fantastic founders. Just felt like I was set up for success to go for it. So we leaned into it back in May of 2024 and really haven't looked back. So, yeah.
That's an amazing path and journey, right? So Alex is a good one for sure. Being in the Bay Area, it's like no other in terms of inspiring those technical juices and the creative wheels. Some big social brands when people look you up. Yeah, you've been at some big notable ones for sure. Appreciate the share on how you got started in your career. If someone wanted to get started in your field that you're in today, and you're at that intersection of AI and infrastructure, what would be your wisdom to them on how to begin or where to begin or how to formulate a path?
Yeah, it's rough out there right now. We have to acknowledge that there's a lot of people graduating and getting their careers started, and a lot of people who've gone through their collegiate technical education. You know, there's people that wanted to be a developer, a software engineer, and they're graduating right now. And it's a tough market. Some of the big brands are shedding positions, and those people are entering the workforce at the same time. Plus, it's also compounded by people are hanging out in their positions a lot later. People aren't retiring in their 50s anymore. They're going well into their 60s and 70s, still occupying top level jobs. That creates a pressure downward throughout the organizational structure. And then the advent of AI, it's certainly eating up some of the entry level positions, right? So, but I do have some advice from a value perspective. Anybody graduating today should seek out opportunities. One of the best things you can do, the value you can bring is your time. Time is money. And when you're entering the workforce, you got plenty of that time. If you have the opportunity, offering your time in exchange for learning a trade, especially in the AI and infrastructure industry, I think that there's a lot of smaller companies that could really leverage that new talent that's graduating. If you didn't pick it up during your education, focusing in today on Rust, learning how to program in Rust, I think that's a big deal. And then I also think that a big deal is, hey, learning how to smartly leverage products like Cursor AI by AnySphere. I think that those, leveraging those AI products to help you develop, that's the wave of the future. And it's more about, it's having a deep understanding for how, to debug and develop or invent, but also having a great understanding for how to manage and leverage those different AI tools that are out there to help you develop. The power players of the future are the ones that can really leverage those well. I think the last piece of advice that I have is don't aim for the biggest players that are out there. Look for companies in a growth phase, because you're going to get far more exposure to a lot of different verticals within that company, or even within the realm of infrastructure, if you go into a growth company, because they never have enough resources. When you land with a growth company, they're going to have the top 3 things or 2 things that they're working on, and everything else just gets put in the backlog. And when you have a command knowledge of your space and you prove yourself out as a trusted person that can execute and get things done, they're going to just start reaching into that backlog and say, hey, try getting this thing done. This is something we don't have the resources to do. Try it and see what you can do. There's a low bar for execution there, a great opportunity for you to go wide in your career and learn about lots of different things. So I think growth phase companies are where it's at.
Well, I love that wisdom. Certainly some pro tips in there, and the contrast for college students hitting the tech space and how they can be leveraged by growth phase startups. That's valuable input, Todd. Well said. Let's talk a little bit more about your company role as CEO and co-founder in TAHO. Who's TAHO and what does TAHO do? And what's the impact in a positive way that y'all are bringing to market?
Sure. So we're the very first cloud performance platform. There's no one else out there that does what we do. We have a middleware layer infrastructure software called TAHO. We replace existing infrastructure software like Kubernetes, Slurm, container-based orchestrators. We provide a brand new approach to executing workload orchestration, workload scheduling, and helping remove all the bottlenecks that exist in today's infrastructure software. Today's infrastructure software was built for yesterday's computing needs, and today's computing needs are 100x what they used to be. And we built infrastructure software geared for the workloads of today: AI, high performance computing, AR, VR, any type of big data analytics and all the like. So yeah, that's what we've built. And we proudly espouse that on the low end, we're 10x faster. On the higher end, we get a lot of things done 30 times faster. And in doing that, you're reducing the amount of time you're spending on cloud infrastructure. Cloud infrastructure is charged by time. So when we get the work done faster for you, you end up paying a lot less. It's very normal for us to see 90% savings on cloud infrastructure costs. So reducing the costs and helping you compute a whole bunch more so you can get more done on the revenue side and save more on the bottom line.
That's amazing. For the listeners, for TAHO, how long from your founding date have you all been at it, and how's it going?
It's going great. We founded the company in May of 2024 with this great idea. Myself and the co-founders, we came to this great idea, and we actually had the idea back in 2018, but couldn't find anybody to pay us to do it because computing was cheap back then, right? Computing and the execution of workloads was not as big a deal back then. And today, computing is far more expensive because of the complexity of computing AI, for the complexity of computing today's high performance computing workloads. So today it's now a necessity. We need to come up with solutions like TAHO because there's not enough energy to fuel all the data center needs that we have. There's not enough hardware out there to put into all the data centers that we need. And there aren't enough data centers to get all of the computing today and into the future done. We knew that there was more computing to be had out of our current infrastructures just by solving this infrastructure software layer. We knew that the timing was right to bring this product to market.
I'm sure you all have great traction in the startup companies, mid-enterprise, and hopefully soon in the enterprise space. We're big consumers.
We're chasing a few of them right now, but we love our early customer profile, which are the startups and growth phase companies for us. It's great because they can lean in. They're tech forward and they have limited funds to work with. So we help them to stretch out those runways and they can bring us in quick. That sales cycle on the enterprise front, our ICP, our ideal customer profile, it's a lot longer. So we're courting a few right now and hopefully we'll get in with one of them soon. We know we will. It's just a matter of time. Our traction is mostly in the startup space. So
well, good luck on the bigger ones. There's more people involved and they are longer, and the smaller ones make decisions faster. And that's one of their advantages of speed to market and time to market.
yeah.
So there's a lot of hype. AI. If we go beyond the hype cycle, everybody's talking about AI transformation and accelerating digitally even faster. But most companies, even on the startup, they're kind of hanging on, right? Burning a lot of cash. How do you actually, these companies that are investing in AI, different budgets, small company and large company, but how do they actually measure whether an AI investment is working versus it just, buying and having for the latest buzzwords? Like, how are they measuring that?
So that's a tricky one because there's not a lot of good metrics out there today. Now, there are some areas that we find are smart areas to look to measure this into the future, but I think that the majority of companies go on gumption today. And I also think that they just kind of try and see, like, let's go ahead and try deploying some of these AI tools and see if we get any gains from a productivity perspective, or maybe there's something that's going to come through in our cash flow or balance sheets that highlights some of those gains. I think there's definitely an opportunity to measure it. If people want to measure what's going on in their companies, if they want to figure out where they're getting their gains from an AI perspective, they need to look at the financials that are involved. And you can do so at a higher level when you just examine the different tasks across your environment and the things that personnel were executing, and then measuring what the cost is of actually just having that AI tool execute against it on a per task basis or even a per project basis. So that's one great place to start. Pretty manual. You're going to roll up your sleeves and have some analysts work on that. There's another mechanism you could start looking at when you get down to a unit level of work. What we try to look at is the work output of your AI today. Catalog that work output from either a revenue perspective or a cost savings perspective. Once you're measuring that, start looking at the units of compute. So start looking at your cost per flop, right? If you're looking at a cost per flop, you're going to be able to understand what kind of output you're getting out of your infrastructure and from your AI when you're at peak performance. You can also look at a cost per job. When you start looking at the cost per job, what are your costs for that AI to actually execute a unit of work for you? And then if you want to get down to real nitty gritty where we exist in the infrastructure space, you can start looking at cost per watt. You can also look at cost per token. If you start looking at those, baselining on those, you're really going to be able to yield indices for making your AI more efficient, figure out which AI is working for you and which AI is not working for you. And then you're also going to be able to look at, hey, how is our AI consuming our computing environment, right? And how can we make that better? So looking at those different indices, you're getting into unit cost economics of executing your work. And maybe it'll end up informing COGS, right, for any revenue motions. And it'll also help you from a cost perspective of just understanding, from a business applications perspective, are we getting any productivity out of this? Are we actually getting any savings? Then you can go back to bottom line and actually look at, hey, how much work are we executing relative to the number of personnel we have today, right? And really what we should be looking for, I say this to people all the time, this is something I really, really believe. I think that there's too many companies out there looking to reduce their workforce. They're looking to reduce their workforce and leverage AI to do it. And I just think it's the wrong approach. At least I believe that today, because reducing a workforce means I want the same work output and I want it to cost a lot less. And that's all bottom line margin stuff, right? That's not the business motion of a growing company. To me, how do I maintain the workforce that I have today? And how do I get that workforce to output 5x? To me, that's business growth. That's top line impact, which will net a bottom line impact. It'll net a margin impact. But rather than trying to work on the cost levers, let's work on the productivity levers. When we talk about our product and sell our product, a lot of people approach it from the glass chewing CFO perspective of, let's get these costs out. But the reality is, I tell people all the time, I was telling you about 10x and 30x earlier, but heck, if I could 2x your output, would you take it? Would you try it? I mean, that's an incredible, like 100% increase in output. Of course. Yeah, there's a 50% cost savings to be had if you just wanted to do the work you're doing. But let's face it, the majority of computing environments have minimum spend thresholds. So you got to spend the money with those cloud providers. Why not look at doubling your output? Let's look at what is going to bring in more revenue for your company and maintain the jobs you got, the workforce that you have, and let's see how we can help all of those individuals output more. I mentioned Cursor earlier, and when I think about AI and I think about Cursor, not just the AI that they execute, but look at the company. They got to 100 million in ARR, and I think they did it with something like 30 personnel or just under 30 personnel. That's an incredible business model. They prove you can do it. They went up against some giants. I'm not going to name any names, but there were some other players in the space that had upwards of 500 personnel. and they ate their lunch, right? Those companies are on the decline right now. And it's because they not only sell AI, but they also embraced building a very focused product that can answer the needs of lots of businesses and people out there. And I mean, that's where the real efficiency is at, right? That organization can highlight what a single individual can do when leveraging AI products in a big market and answering a big market need. I think that's really helped to redefine what the companies of tomorrow can do. It's about leveraging AI and increasing the multiples of what the output of a single individual can be.
I love that. You hit on the productivity in 5xing or 10xing or 20xing an employee, but we 2x is great. And keeping that valuable talent on the team to innovate, drive, and build a great culture for a company, but the wrong mindset to reduce capacity on the people side, hitting the bottom line. I love how you think about that. Let's talk a little about, kind of that that supply and kind of demand reality check. Everyone's again talks about cloud first and, infinite compute and infinite scalability. You're pointing out fundamentally hardware is constrained, energy is constrained, cooling those systems down constrained in the data centers. So then how should IT leaders measure success on those underlying economics that are working against them?
Yeah. So it's really interesting too, because it's really interesting, as we've gone down this endeavor, with our new products, we've found that there's a lot of ignorance out there as to what the hardware is able to do. And there's a lot of ignorance as to where efficiencies actually lie. The thing we like to challenge people with when we're selling our product or when we're talking to technical leaders is everybody's attempting to answer the problem of utilization. They find efficiencies in their computing infrastructure by identifying idle time and removing it to increase the utilization of the work being done or the infrastructure they have. The interesting thing is that utilization does not always equal efficiency. All right. It's one of the examples we like to use is if I'm going to build a pool in my backyard, I need to dig a hole first. I could dig that hole with this spoon. So you could try and dig the hole by yourself with a spoon. You could also go out and get 999 neighbors and give them each a spoon and have 1,000 people with spoons digging the hole in your backyard. However, that's not smart work. You're fully utilized. Everybody's working their tail off. Nobody's taking a break. And you got 1,000 spoons digging in your backyard, right? Now, we look at that and see that as the work of yesterday. It's time to invent something new. It's time to invent the backhoe, have one person operating the backhoe and dig out that hole for the pool, dig out that ditch for the pool. When we're looking at Kubernetes, we think of Kubernetes as the entire village digging with spoons, or you could use TAHO, the single person with a backhoe that's going to get it done the right way. There's more efficient ways to get the work done, right? When you look at utilization, it can give you false signal that you're removing all of the idle time. Does that make you slightly more efficient? Maybe, right? You're not paying for idle time, so that's more efficient. But the reality is that you're just doing more busy work. And there's a smarter way to get the work done. That's where we come in because we have a much smarter way of orchestrating and scheduling all of the computing jobs that need to get done in your work environments. Might have deviated quite a bit from your original question, but that's the way we look at it. When we talk to those technical professionals, then that's when we start looking at the cost per flop. That's when we start looking at those unit cost economics that go down to what's your cost per watt consumed, or what's the cost, what kind of jobs are you doing? What does it cost you to get those jobs done today? And when we start talking to them about that, most often they don't even measure these things. And when we first show them, hey, let's take a test workload. We're showing you an A/B here of what we can get done relative to a Kubernetes environment, or even just using PyTorch on a single GPU. We're showing you the A/B of how we're doing, 30 to 60x faster. but let's take your workloads. Let's take some of those workloads and let's show you how much faster we can get those done on the very same infrastructure in your environment. We show them that, and then they can infer, oh, wow, that would be a lot cheaper too. The reality is when we first start talking to them, they're not paying attention to the unit cost economics of how that work's getting done or how potentially inefficient it is getting the work done the way that they are today. There's plenty of tools out there today. Microsoft makes one, tools you can buy and add to your environment that are going to help you sniff out any idle time. So you can go the utilization route, which is great. But at the end of the day, there is a better way to get the work done. And we're running around trying to educate everybody about that today. So at first, showing people our product, giving them the Pepsi challenge and showing them how much faster our product is, that one's plain today for people to see. But the reality is the majority of folks out there are not measuring cost per watt. They're not measuring the cost per job or anything of that nature yet. And I think that that's kind of the next, if we're really going to get more efficient and stop just throwing hardware at the problem and actually solving the work that's getting done like we are at TAHO, until we start looking at those unit cost economics, nobody's going to feel the need to do it. Once more people know about us and we become a household name in the industry, people will be more sensitive to it. And they're going to want to highlight these unit cost economics so that they can present to their executives, their boards, the investing public. They'll want to know these unit cost economics. And I think that these unit cost economics are going to become an indices in the future, in the not too distant future. I think they're going to become an indices for the investing community. I think that they're going to be something that people are going to start reporting on in their quarterly earnings reports, because it's going to be a great source of additional revenue potential for them and indicate the real work that they're doing to deliver a better product or even product.
And you're starting to hit on how you get folks to care about some of these measurements, how you get them to pay attention. Let's talk about this infrastructure software invisibility problem, because you're essentially saying that most critical layer computing and infrastructure software, it's invisible to decision makers. How do you measure the impact of something designed to be transparent? So then how do you get these leaders, right, that in the small companies and in the large companies that have the decision making, the budget, and the vision, but how do you get these infrastructure leaders to care about efficiency that they can't see? And I think you're starting to hit on that, is these indices, but how do you get them to pay attention and care on these things they can't see?
Yeah, it's really about showcasing from a performance perspective what the product's capable of doing. I think everybody can attach the old school Pepsi challenge when it was just you taste the one, product A, and then you taste product B, and then you uncover and people say, oh, geez, I thought that was the other product. And they're happy with the new product. I think that's a really important piece to educating and selling our product, showcasing to people how much faster it is. It hits you like a bucket of cold water when you see how much faster it is than all of the other products out there today, and by orders of magnitude. Showcasing that for us is the most important thing. Showcasing the most obvious value of our product in a way that's easily digestible for people is the best way to get that product out there and help people start understanding efficiencies and where the waste is located in their current infrastructure. That's what we lean into heavily. A lot of the time my team spends right now is not so much in product development, but in little case studies, little demonstrations. We're spending a lot of time thinking of demonstrations that people may really care about. One demonstration that we're doing right now, we're building a demonstration that is text to image demonstrations. We're taking a text to image LLM and showcasing how it works on a single GPU, how much time it takes. And one we're doing right now takes about 66 seconds. And we take the exact same infrastructure, the exact same LLM with the exact same prompt, and then we go and execute that leveraging TAHO instead by removing the infrastructure software and putting in TAHO, and it comes out in just under 6 seconds. So easy 10x improvement. But you start showcasing things like that, those little proof scenarios. And of course, Of course there's a savings to be had here. Of course it's faster, right? It's just you got to hit them right between the eyes with those obvious wins and advantages. And of course they look at it and they want to question it, they want to pick at it, they want to sign the NDA so they can start looking at our technology and seeing how we do it, right? Which we do. That's the only path because to your point, they don't understand that there are efficiencies to be had. You know, my co-founders and I and our extremely talented group of developers all understand the truth, the orchestration and scheduling technologies of today, like Kubernetes, like Red Hat OpenShift and the like. They are just fundamentally based upon very old technologies, right? Many of them are based on containers. You know, we're talking about 12 to 13-year-old technology that's trying to serve tomorrow's AI developments, supercomputing, and even agentic, right? We're leveraging just old tech. The hardware that we're using just came off the assembly line yesterday. The applications that this computing is serving have been optimized and they're just coming off, they're just shipping out of the doors of these software companies, right? But the fundamentals, having this underlying technology being as old as it is, it's just not geared for this type of computing job. We get to show people, hey, this is just way faster, right? Here, watch it. Tortoise and the hare. Let's go. We beat them. All right. Now they want to know why. We educate them about the efficiencies that are gained and how we do it. The sales process continues from there. It's just having the very obvious juxtaposition of product A versus our product, and let's go.
I love it. I'm passionate about your vision in your product. Spent time in software development around infrastructure on the Cisco side and software development lifecycle. It's irrelevant to hear you speak about this around compute and performance. Infrastructure of yesteryear is not going to serve the applications and the outcomes that we're trying to drive today. So it's an amazing and powerful to hit them right between the eyes. Speaking of being hit right between the eyes, you've been building TAHO in the company in about a year. Y'all are moving quick. But where have you been kind of hit between the eyes? Where have you had some hard knocks or lessons learned over the last year or so?
I think one of the toughest things is, as obvious as it is to us, how much savings can be had here. I've been on the buyer side of enterprise for a lot of my career, managing software products for major brands. I am still shocked at how much effort it takes to sell into these big enterprises. I'm shocked because we had this great product, but the resistance to change is real. There's a lot of layers you got to sell to. The entry point can be the glass chewing CFO that I noted earlier. It can be that technical leader that wants to try something new. But throughout the entire organization, you got to sell at every single level. And then once you sell them, you have to help them sell the product internally for budgeting purposes. Then you have to sell them on the allocation of existing resources and personnel. And once you're working alongside those personnel, you have to continue to sell to each one of those individual contributors within that organization that really have to give your product a fair chance in that environment. And you to sell on all fronts, even teaching our devs that from an account engineer perspective are going to be helping these customers. They have to understand that they're constantly selling too. That's been a big learning for me. I foolishly thought it would be a bit easier to get in, but we're up for the challenge. We're enjoying it. We've taken our lumps, but we're having a lot of fun. We're well funded at this point, and we're certainly set up for success. We're getting close on some of those initial enterprise customers, and that's just a matter of time.
That's good to hear. And what I think you're hitting on is the classic sales motion in the enterprise space of complex sales cycles, paperwork, TAs, MSAs, and beyond, DPAs if you're international for data protection. But then, yeah, you've got a series of influencers, you've got coaches, you've got champions, and then in the end, you've got economic buyer. And those of us that have been, heads of revenue, man, we've been sucking that up through a straw for the last 25, 30 years. It takes time. And you've got legacy vendors that have been there a while too, kind of the HPs and the EMCs and on the compute side, the storage side. So they've been buying for a certain way for decades and kind of groomed that way. Yep. Couple of last, kind of easy questions. What do most people get wrong as they step into doing what you're doing, either in your space, on the tech space, or as CEO and co-founder? What do they get wrong?
Oh man, it's a good question. Can you give me a little bit more clarifying on it? Like what specifically, like what kind of things we're talking about getting wrong?
Yeah, so you've kind of chipped your teeth a little bit on selling into the enterprise
Mm-hmm.
versus it being a faster sale.
Mhm.
That's kind of a go-to-market. Then you've got folks that are first-time CEOs and co-founders starting and building a company. So any aha moments that you thought was also going to be fast, like selling in the enterprise, but then that was a little bit of an aha moment. For a CEO that's starting the company and running it and building it, what other, not to use in the trenches or chipping your teeth, but some of those aha moments that people think otherwise and then they get them wrong.
I think that there's a reality, the truth to all of this. The threshold of everyone caring about the success of your company indexes to you. And the moment you let your foot off the gas, everybody else does. And that's internal to your organization, external to your organization, people who are advisors, partners, customers, and anybody in between. If your foot's not all the way down on that gas, nobody's foot is all the way down on that gas. That to me was something I learned in being a first time founder. I don't say that in a bitter manner. I say it just, it's a truth. And it's important that you understand that you set the pace all day, every second, right? Yeah. It's to make certain that you're ready for that and that you accept that walking into it, because there's only one way to win in startup tech. That's to be the best, be the front runner, and stay out there.
I love it. That's a great one. Setting the pace, building the culture, and everybody rallying around you for that same amount of energy. It's infectious and starts at the top. So you hit that one. Last one. Where can our listeners or folks that are watching, where can they find you? Where are you going to be in the fall conference wise? Where are you going to be online? And where could people go to find you?
Physically, I don't have any forecasting for it. We may be able to get out to some conferences, but the best place to find us is our website, TAHO Infrastructure Software. You can get full access to us through there real easy. So we send everybody over there, learn about the product, and we have some new things shipping soon. We have a new community section of our website that's going to ship soon, where people are going to be able to actually try out the product. But if you were just really interested in learning about the product and trying it out today, you can contact us through there, and we'll take care of you.
Love it. People need to know where to find you and learn about TAHO and the software and the efficiencies and performance impact that y'all are building and delivering to the mid-market, to the startups, and to the enterprise. Todd Smith, it's been a treat. It's been a delight. I'm excited to spend the time with you. Thanks for carving that out for us. We appreciate it.
Likewise, Mark, it was really fun, and thanks for all the interest. Love this podcast. It's a great format, and keep it up, man. It's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. Wish you all the best luck out there. And that's a wrap, folks. Thank you very much.